Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of House Resolution 4613. 75 years ago today, an executive order was passed and signed into law which caused a grave injustice and was itself a grave injustice in a number of different respects. It was an injustice to the 120,000 American citizens who happened to be of Japanese descent, whose lives were turned upside down. It was an injustice to the ideals of our country, and thank God we live in a country not formed on the basis of tribalism or on the basis of class or on the basis of race, but on the basis of ideals. Ideals which we have certainly not always lived up to, Mr. Speaker, but ideals which nevertheless we claim to hold and which stand as a North Star so that when we deviate from them, we're able to point out when we're wrong, and we're able, as cheaply as it may be today, 75 years later, to say we're sorry, and to know that we're sorry because we have sinned against our first founding principles. It's worth remembering as well that Executive Order 9066 represented a failing of all three branches of the federal government. It was not an act of Congress. Congress itself abdicated the responsibility for such a massive decision to the presidency. The president himself signed the order and acted as a single person to rearrange the lives and order the internment of 120,000 people based merely on their race and their their ancestry. And it was a failure of the United States Supreme Court. Don't forget that Fred Korematsu, a Japanese American living in Southern California, who by complete agreement was a loyal, patriotic American, was charged with violating Executive Order 9066 for merely remaining in his house. He brought his case to the US Supreme Court, which decided that even though the order itself was an ancestry-based classification, which is presumably suspect under the Constitution, nevertheless, it was justified. It was a 6-3 decision. We're grateful always for the dissenters in that case, but they were indeed dissenters. And it's worth remembering what can happen in times of war and in times of fear when all three branches of the government abdicate their responsibility to our first principles. So while we can't right the wrongs of the past, those injustices will always remain, those lives will always be upturned, and those families will always remember how much we failed them. I'm grateful to be able to stand in support of House Resolution 4613 so that we can remember and we can apologize. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.